Good morning, lovely children. Let's continue with the lesson, The Best Christmas Present in the World, from your Honeydew book. In the last two parts, we have seen that the author, Michael Morpurgo, finds a letter from the secret drawer of the old roll-top desk. The letter is written to Connie by her husband, Jim Macpherson, who is a soldier and is on the war field. Jim shares his friendly time spent in peace and goodwill with German soldiers. It was about the Christmas evening spent wonderfully which he will cherish forever. He concludes the letter with a promise to meet her on next Christmas. Part 3. I folded the letter again and slipped it carefully back into its envelope. I kept awake all night. After reading the letter, the author was disturbed, thinking about who the person is, what happened to Jim Macpherson, and what about Connie. Thinking about them, he could not sleep the whole night. By morning, I knew what I had to do. I drove into Bridport, just a few miles away. Bridport, where Connie used to live, was close to his residence, so he drove very next morning to meet Connie. I asked a boy walking his dog where Copper Beaches was. House number 12 turned out to be nothing but a burned out shell, the roof gaping, the windows boarded up. So he was highly disappointed by seeing the place. The house was burned out, and it looked like it's abandoned. I knocked at the house next door and asked if anyone knew the whereabouts of a Mrs. Macpherson. So, seeing this house, he went to next house and knocked, and he tried to find out about Mrs. Macpherson. "Oh, yes," said the old man in his slippers. He knew her well. "A lovely lady," he told me. "A bit muddle-headed. Muddle-headed. Muddle-headed means confused. But at her age, she was entitled to be, wasn't she? 101-year-old. That old person called her a lovely lady, who stayed a bit confused most of the time, but he blamed it on her age, for she was 101 years old. She had been in the house when it caught fire. No one really knew how the fire had started, but it could well have been candles. So the old person said that nobody actually knows how the fire caught, but people suspect it to be candles. And why candles? Because this old lady used a lot of candle as she thought electricity was too expensive to be used. She used candles rather than electricity because she always thought electricity was too expensive. The fireman had got her out just in time. She was in a nursing home now, he told me. Burlington House, on the Dorchester Road, on the other side of town. I found Burlington House nursing home easily enough. There were paper chains up in the hallway, and a lighted Christmas tree stood in the corner with a lopsided angel on top. Lopsided means asymmetrical. Now, as this was Christmas season and Christmas celebration was going on in the nursing home too, and it was beautifully decorated for the occasion. I said I was a friend come to visit Mrs. Macpherson to bring her a Christmas present. Author Michael Morpurgo said that he is a friend of Mrs. Macpherson and he has come to visit her to give her a Christmas present. I could see through into the dining room where everyone was wearing a paper hat and singing. So he could clearly see the Christmas atmosphere there, the Christmas party, the Christmas Eve being celebrated there by the inmates. Everyone were wearing paper hats and they were singing. The matron had a hat on too and seemed happy enough to see me. Who is matron now? Matron is a female, a lady, who is in charge of domestic and medical arrangements at an institution. She is the one who takes care of the inmates in any particular institution. So she was happy enough to see him. She even offered me a mince pie. Mince pie is made of mixture of dry fruits and is made specially during the Christmas season and is served on Christmas Eve. She walked me along the corridor. Mrs. Macpherson is not in with the others, she told me. So she told me that she is not with the other people in the hall, in the dining room there. She is rather confused today, so we thought it best if she had a good rest. So Mrs. Macpherson is little confused today, so they thought that she should get good rest. She has no family, you know. No one visits. This statement shows that she doesn't have any relative to visit her. She doesn't have any children, not even husband who comes and visits her. So I'm sure she will be only too pleased to see you. So she says that she'll be happy to see you. She took me into a conservatory with wicker chairs and potted plants all around and left me. The author says that she took him into a conservatory. Now what is a conservatory? Conservatory is a room which is made up of glass and its walls are used as greenhouse. And it is attached to the house only from one side. Then wicker chairs are the chairs which are made out of natural things, as you can see here, like cane or bamboo. Then she left him there in the room. The old lady was sitting in a wheelchair, her hands folded in her lap. She had silver white hair pinned into a wispy bun. She was gazing out at the garden. "Hello," I said. She turned and looked up at me vacantly. "Happy Christmas, Connie," I went on. "I found this. I think it's yours." As I was speaking, her eyes never left my face. I opened the tin box and gave it to her. That was the moment her eyes lit up with recognition and her face became suffused with a sudden glow of happiness. I explained about the desk, about how I had found it, but I don't think she was listening. Wispy means fine. Lit up became bright with excitement and happiness. Suffused with spread all over the face. So, inside the conservatory sat an old lady in a wheelchair with her hands folded in her lap. Her white hair was tied in a neat bun. As she sat there, she was staring at the garden when he entered. The author went and said, "Hello." She turned her attention towards him as he continued wishing her Happy Christmas and gave her the letter. She constantly looked at his face while he spoke. It was only when he handed her the tin box that her eyes became radiant due to immense happiness. After handing the tin box over to her, he explained the series of events that led him to the letter, but she didn't listen a word. He said, as she was filled with so much of happiness. For a while she said nothing, but stroked the letter tenderly with her fingertips. Tenderly means with gentleness, kindness, and affection. Suddenly, She reached out and took my hand. Her eyes were filled with tears. "You told me you would come home by Christmas, dearest," she said. "And here you are, the best Christmas present in the world. Come closer, Jim dear, sit down." As he stood there silently, Connie moved and took his hand while her eyes were filled with tears. She said that he had fulfilled his promise of being there by Christmas. She even said that he is the best Christmas present in the world. She then asked him to come near her and sit beside her. She called the author Jim, so she thought it's a husband who has come back from the war. I sat down beside her, and she kissed my cheek. I read your letter so often, Jim, every day. I wanted to hear your voice in my head. It always made me feel you were with me, and now you are. Now you are back. You can read it to me yourself. Would you do that for me, Jim dear? I just want to hear your voice again. I would love that so much. And then perhaps we will have some tea. I have made you a nice Christmas cake, marzipan all around. I know how much you love marzipan." He did as she said. He went near her and sat down while she kissed him on his cheek. She told him how she read his letter daily, and it made her feel like she was with him. She longed to hear his voice, but then she mentioned now that he is here with her, he can read out the letter to her in his voice. She asked if he would do that for her. She explains that she just wants to hear his voice badly, and if he could do that for her, she would love that. She suggested that they can even have tea afterwards. She then told him that she even made his favorite Christmas cake with marzipan, so she is well aware of how he loved marzipan. Michael Mopergo. So, my dear children, the story The Best Christmas Present in the World has beautifully depicted the moral. It conveys that war and fight only brings sadness and humiliation all around the world. One should generally follow the path of peace for attaining happiness in the world. Thank you.